Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. We're going to have so much fun today. I am so delighted with my guest. It's going to be such a great topic. And so please join me in welcoming Mark Mears to our program today. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
Deb, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you. This is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
It is. And, in the pre-show, we were talking a little college smack, a little college football, because you're a KU person and I'm, of course, a CU Buffs. And, and we're going to be back to playing each other again. And this is going to be so much fun. We love it, right? We love those old rivalries.
Long live the big 8, 12, 16, whatever it is.
Whatever the heck we are. We're just going to be big.
We're glad the Buffaloes are going to be roaming again in Kansas.
They are. We should bring Ralphie out. Let's have Ralphie take on a Jayhawk.
Well,
I'm pretty sure I know who'd win.
I don't think it would end well for the Jayhawk, but we would have to learn how to fly real quick.
This is true. So, but such fun. So, like I said, we're going to have a great conversation today. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll get back into the meat and potatoes of this.
Sounds good.
So Mark A. Mears is a #1 best-selling author, keynote speaker, consultant, and visionary business leader. He has a significant track record of building stakeholder value, driving innovation and profitable growth among world-class, high-profile brands. Now, listen to these folks, such as PepsiCo Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Frito-Lay, JCPenney, NBCUniversal, and the Cheesecake Factory. Today, Mark serves as founder and chief growth officer for Leaf Growth Ventures, LLC. And as I said, he is an author. He is the author of The Purposeful Growth Revolution. So again, Mark, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I deserve that introduction, but given I wrote it, I shouldn't sound too surprised. But thank you so much for your kind welcome.
I love it. Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today. And you have had quite the illustrious career. So talk to us about how it is that you have worked with these major brands, and now you're leading everyone in a purposeful growth revolution.
Yeah. Well, as was sung years ago, it's been a long and winding road, or also what a long, strange trip it's been. As though my musical references are dating me. I went to the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, as you mentioned, undergrad, and I wanted to be a lawyer. And so you can't major in pre-law. Right. So I asked people who were in law school or out of law school, what's the best way to prepare me to get into and survive and thrive as a lawyer? And they said, well, you're going to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of writing, and a lot of critical thinking, and a lot of presentations. I said, great. They said, well, KU has one of the top journalism schools in the country. Have you thought about going into the J school? And I thought, well, no. And they go, well, that's what you're going to be doing. And so instead of, traditional, liberal arts kind of majors like history or poli-sci or government or something, I decided to do that. Well, along the way, I really fell in love with the idea of marketing communications. And ironically, if I went into law, I wanted to go into communications law because I thought there'd be a future in that. And guess what? There has been. But two things happened. One, I had a professor, Dr. Tim Bankston, and he saw something in me that I'm sure I didn't see in myself. And he said, are you sure you want to go to law school? Because you're pretty good at this marketing communication stuff. Have you thought about going to grad school instead? I'm like, no, I'm still on this path. I am enjoying this, I will tell you, but no, I've kind of got this goal in mind, a very goal-oriented person. So then I started asking around people that were in law school, just out of law school, people who had their name on the door. Nobody seemed happy. And so I'm like, well, no one's talking me into going into being a lawyer. And yet someone has really put their arm around me, or in Jayhawk world, their wing around me, and said, you should probably go to grad school, and you should go to Northwestern, where they teach it the best. And I looked into a couple other schools, got into Northwestern, and lo and behold, the professor, Dr. Don Schultz, came up with the concept of integrated marketing communications, as we know today, IMC.
Right.
And I believe Colorado has an IMC program. And so I learned at the feet of the master, Don Schultz, integrated marketing communications. And then I went into first the agency side, and then kind of on the brand marketer side. I was with Pizza Hut when PepsiCo owned us. So I got the training of PepsiCo within the tremendous cultural environment of Pizza Hut. And then I had a chance to go to Chicago, was at Leo Burnett, working on McDonald's business, a big chunk of their promotional marketing business. Left there to go to Dallas, to go to DDB, to head up the whole Frito-Lay business. And then one thing led to another. I was at JCPenney in a sales planning and promotion position. I was the senior VP of sales and marketing at Universal Studios Hollywood, then become the first CMO at the Cheesecake Factory. Was president of Mimi's Cafe, and then came back to Texas and was at Schlotzsky's as a CMO, Noodles and Company. And just a couple of years ago decided, I love what I do. I love building teams and I love building brands in that order. But I feel a calling to do something bigger and broader, which led me to the completion of a book that I had started writing several years ago as kind of a cathartic hobby after being unceremoniously let go from a president position, where a new brand came in and bought us and cleaned the house and brought in their own team and moved the office and everything like that. So I kind of started this idea, which we'll talk about, based on that kind of life event. And you always hear it's darkest before the dawn. In this case, it was true.
Right.
And this idea came to me as an epiphany on the morning after. We were living in Los Angeles, and it was February 21st, it was 2013. So that over 10 years ago. We had a fig tree in our backyard that was barren from the 6 or 7 weeks of winter we do get. And after a fitful night of sleep, after that pretty significant life event happened, I get up early and take the dog outside. And Deb, God is my witness. The dawn was breaking and the sun was shining over this wall we had in our backyard on that fig tree. And there on the end of one branch was this tiny little green sprig of a leaf just starting to bud. And it was there I got this epiphany that leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. And I took the dog back inside. I went in my office and started banging out a treatment on my computer. Not only is it a symbol of growth and rebirth, but it is also where all growth happens through the plant or the tree. And so I got to thinking about this idea through the magic of photosynthesis, right? That a leaf is a symbol of nature and there are 4 seasons. And I got to thinking I had been leading with the rule of threes. And that,
and we're taught 3 is
3 is a magic number. 4 is too many. 2 is not enough. 3 is just right. But my mantra when I was president of that company was leadership, engagement, and accountability. If we do these 3 things, we're going to turn this brand around. We're going to put a new brand positioning in the ground, and we're going to get money from the parent company, was publicly traded, to help grow the brand, which is what I was recruited to do. But what I now realized is, wait a minute, there are 4 seasons, not 3. There are 4 directions, not 3. There are 4 chambers to the human heart, not 3. There are 4 elements to an atom, the source of all life, not 3. And I could go on and on with this foreplay to get where I'm going. So what I was feeling at that time, what was missing to me was F for fulfillment. I didn't look at leadership, engagement, accountability as Lee. I used it as a mantra with every one of my communications, our recognition and reward program. I would say, look at Deb. She's establishing tremendous leadership in her restaurants, or she's getting such great engagement from her team members,
Mm-hmm.
or she's holding herself and her team accountable for results against
Mm-hmm.
everybody else in the region. And it was just my mantra.
Right.
But what I realized when the rug got pulled out from under me, after doing what I was brought in to do and having myself and my team all shown the door,
Mm-hmm.
we were working our butts off, burning the candle at both ends, sacrificing. I can't even tell you where I lived and where I commuted to in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have it all taken away
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, sorry, it's not personal, it's just business. Well,
Right.
it was very personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized we were chasing numbers for the sake of numbers, and we were rushing to do this great turnaround story. And instead of the parent company pumping capital into us as they promised, they basically said, well, I guess we'll strike while the iron's hot.
You're so good, we're going to sell you.
We'll see what we get, from it. And they did. And so
Mm-hmm.
it turned out to not be very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it turned into the foundation for my LEAF growth model. Leadership represents the seeds and the roots. Like any great company, you've got to have strong leadership, right? And there are 4 C's of leadership. There's clarity, there's connection, there's communication, and there's commitment that all lead to alignment. And what we know, great leaders are able to align their stakeholders behind an inspiring vision that wants to get them committed and engaged. And so the second piece of the model is the trunk, the branches, and the system of nourishment, which is called savia. In Spanish, that translates to English is lifeblood. Well, what's the lifeblood of any organization? It's people.
People.
So how do you engage people with their heart, their head, their hands, and their habits in a way that leads to empowerment? Because we know empowered team members are more invested in the outcome, and they'll provide more unsolicited productivity because they're really bought in.
Right.
And then that moves on to the leaf and the fruit of a tree, the accountability.
Right.
What that fig tree in my backyard only knows how to be a fig tree. That's its outcome, right? And that's achievement. So you look at the 4 O's of accountability, which are outcomes, measuring what matters most. It's obstacles. What happens when your plans go awry? Oh, I don't know. Anyone remember COVID? Your outliers, which are those people you can learn from, best practices that can help you do what you currently do to the best of your ability, and obsolescence, which you want to avoid by putting a process in place for innovation. Who remembers, Circuit City today, and even Blockbuster Video, high flyers in their day, maybe even Kodak. How about BlackBerry? A lot of companies that were number one in their categories for a number of years are even on the stock exchange today because they couldn't see around the corner. They didn't have a process of innovation that would go where the puck is going versus they were skating to where it was. And then finally, you have fulfillment, which is essentially the ecosystem, the sun, the soil, the rain that allows that photosynthesis to occur. So think of it as the culture of an organization that provides that nurturing environment where people can be the best version of themselves, like that fig tree. If it's planted in the most fertile environment, it's going to grow strong and tall. It's going to bear fig leaves that will continue to bear fig fruit. And then what's really cool for this model is that not only is that fig fruit suitable for sustenance for people and animals, but inside there are seeds.
It is a seed
that you can scatter for future growth. And so that's this idea of revolutionary in terms of my purposeful growth revolution and how I got to where I am today.
I love that because it does incorporate everything. And I think especially the fulfillment part, because how many times do we talk with someone and they say, they're doing their job because it's their job. And well, what do you get out of it? A paycheck. I mean, they don't say it makes my soul happy. Now, the paycheck is important. We get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, we also need those other things for people to truly be fulfilled. And it is the other nourishment pieces of it, so that the kudos, I was listening to a program on the radio the other day, and they were talking about millennials, and I love it. All these people make fun of these millennials, and I'm like, well, y'all raised them. I don't, but they were
True that.
saying, that giving them a raise is not always, or even a promotion, the title, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. It's not always what they care about. What they care about is if you say, hey, Mark, you did a great job today, and that personal
Yeah.
thing is what they can now, are they happy with the raise and all that stuff? But what they crave is to be told they're doing a good job. And we actually all crave that, right? When we're learning to walk,
Yeah.
good job, baby. All of these various things. We want the A's in school. We want the kudos. We were talking sports. We want the
Yeah.
touchdowns. We want, the Super Bowls, all of those things. We want that praise. And that's kind of that fulfillment part, that nurturing part of things.
Yeah, and I think in addition, that's a great insight and observation, Deb. But I think in addition to that, I think people want to feel like they're doing more than just punching in and out of clock
Right.
and getting paid every other week and working for the weekend. They want to feel like their work has meaning,
right?
Or what I call purposeful growth. And so being part of something bigger than themselves. So I have 25-year-old twin daughters who are right on the cusp of Gen Z and millennials. And I can guarantee you their expectation, they're both whip smart. And I don't know where they got that from. Clearly their mom.
Their mom.
But they have such a different expectation of work than we did when we were growing up, where the command and control style of management, and I'll say management, not leadership, because I don't believe that's leadership. I believe that's management. Words matter, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But we tolerated it because we thought that's just the way the world works.
That's the way our parents, who were, now we're right at the end of baby boomer. But our parents were baby boomers. And that was what they, you went to work. It's the old donut
Very
commercial.
linear.
Got to get up and make the donuts, right?
Time to make the donuts. I love it. It was, life was very linear. It was go to school, get good grades, get your first job, get promoted or get your second job, get married, have kids, put a little money away for college, and somewhere around the age of 65, right off in the sunset with a gold watch. And that's not the way it is.
No.
And that's a bit of a myth. I'm not sure that's the way it ever was, but that's what we were taught was our kind of linear lifespan. Well, now it's all over the board. And that's where this Venn diagram with 4 circles that I use throughout my book is, it's like the 4 seasons. Okay. So March 21st, if I'm not mistaken, is the first day of spring.
Right.
Well, I now live in Kansas City, and I guarantee you it doesn't feel very spring-like on
No,
March
it's a little
21st,
nippy there still.
versus when I lived in Los Angeles, very much felt like spring. Well, the whole year almost feels like spring. But that's beside the point, because there's overlap, right? And it's the same thing with our lives. We go through different seasons of our life. But we don't just usually go through one thing at a time. We're whole people. And so I look at the Simon Sinek model of start with why. And this whole notion of why you do what you do is more important to people than how you do it and even what you do. And while I buy into that philosophically, I think he's missing the boat on the front end, which I believe we should start with who, and specifically who we serve. And we serve 4 different realms if we're like most people: spiritual, relational, professional, and personal. We're whole people. And we need to feel safe bringing our whole self into the workplace versus in my day, it was like, don't bring that personal crap in here.
Oh,
just keep your nose to the
forbid.
grindstone. And I don't want to talk about feelings or anything. I just want to get the work done, and we got to hit our profit goals or our sales goals or whatever they are, right? So the new world of work is changing on purpose.
Right.
And COVID really gave us a timeout, almost, an opportunity to be really deeply reflective on what, and maybe more so, who is most important in our lives. And so we heard about the Great Resignation, where people were leaving their jobs en masse, which I call the Great Repurposing, because the Sloan School of Management at MIT did a study of 34 million people that left the workforce during COVID and asked them a simple question: why? The number one stated reason, by over 10x over the second most stated reason, was toxic work environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the old broadcast news movie where the guy's shaking his fist. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We all got a sense of mortality.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we got sick ourselves, or a family member, or maybe someone was hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone we know or love died as a result of it. And it became real to us. This isn't a red or blue issue. This isn't a United States issue. It's a global pandemic. And we were sheltered in place. We didn't know what we didn't know. We got all these daily updates. Everyone's trying to figure this out. So it made us really deeply reflect, as this stuff abates, do I want to go back to that toxic
what
work
is
environment?
Next?
No. And I want to go where that I feel more purposeful. So let me give you a couple stats that I point out in my book and also on my website. There is a group called the Science of Purpose. And you can imagine they study purpose and its importance and its impacts. It said individuals with a connection to their purpose experience 63% increase in wealth, leadership, effectiveness, and fulfillment. They learn twice as much. They're 4 times more engaged and are 175% more productive. That's almost 2 people worth. And so you say, that's great for individuals. What about companies? Well, they went on and said purposeful companies experience higher margins as purposeful firms are 30% more innovative. And get this, 73% of customers will switch to higher purpose brands and be willing to pay more for them. And their higher levels of retention and tenure, which we know is a major issue in the labor market today, and have 54% more fulfilling work relationships, which Gallup tells us is one of the key determinants of engagement in the workplace. And so when we think about this idea of quiet quitting, and engagement is wrapped around that, and Gallup is
because quiet quitting is lack of engagement.
Exactly, and they do a state of the workplace study every year, and for last year they showed that in team members, and I hate the word employers or employees, but that's what they use. So we'll talk about words matter in a minute. They're saying that 32% of employees are considered engaged, which is down 2% versus prior year. 18% are considered actively disengaged. That's up 2%. It's widening to where 50% are in that murky, mushy middle. And so what are we missing? And this is really important. Clarity of expectations. What am I supposed to really be doing? Connection to the mission or purpose of the company. I want to be connected to something bigger than myself. Get this, opportunities to learn and grow. I don't want to just do what I'm currently doing. I want to learn. I want to grow. And then opportunities to do what employees do best and feeling cared about at work. Okay. So these are the consistent areas that are disengagers. And is a simple way of turning that around. You know what that is, Deb?
No.
Would you like to know?
Of course.
Well, my thesis with the Purposeful Growth Revolution, or at least one of them, is to help put the human back in human resources. And
these are not assets. They are employees.
Well, I'm going to say they are team members. And I'm going to unpack some words matter here in a minute.
Because employees is kind of,
it's like someone who just draws a paycheck and goes to work. And to your point, they're seen as an asset on the balance sheet or, a line, probably the most expensive line on a P&L sheet, right? So to get at the engagement, all we need is love. And I'm not talking about love, the kind that's going to get you a quick call from HR
not
and escort you out of the building.
But
again, a model that says listen, observe, value, and empower. So listen to what they're saying, ask good questions to also unearth what they're not saying. Again, we're whole people. We may have a kid that's sick that needs surgery, and we're worried about that. We may be worried about this impending recession we keep hearing about, or is AI going to take over my job, or, whatever it may be. And so if you're a leader, not a boss, A leader,
because they are very different.
very different. A boss is someone who earns that title of boss, and it's only on their business card because they were given it. And it's a temporary title at best if they truly are a boss. A leader is a title that's earned every day.
Right.
By your actions, by your words, and by your own servant leadership. So how do we listen to our team members as whole people? Then how do we observe them? And by observing, I don't mean just watching and waiting for that dreaded end of the year performance appraisal where it's kind of a gotcha. No one likes them. No one does them well. But observing as someone like a football coach would do. Now, I live in Kansas City, home of the world champion.
Yeah, you got Patrick.
Yeah, well, we also have
That's all right.
Reed.
I had Elway and
I remember. Painfully, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, Elway and Peyton.
I think it's been 15 games in a row that Casey's beaten the Broncos. But I digress. But Andy Reid is one of the top coaches in the sport. He doesn't wait for the end of the season to coach people. It's every day in every practice with every coach on the field, not on the sidelines, on the field in film sessions. So how can you observe your team member after you know, because you've listened to what they're going through, what they want, what their goals are, and then how do you help get them there by coaching and leading and then valuing them as a whole person?
Right.
You know, and that means, you know, not only recognition and reward, whether in person or in private, like you said, that's one thing, you know, millennials and Gen Z really, they crave that, you know, that kind of pat on the head of you're doing a great job. More than that, but if you truly value them, wouldn't you want to give them learning opportunities? I mentioned one of the Gallup, you know, de-engagers, if you will, is opportunities to learn and grow and do what they do best. And then make sure that they're connected to the mission and purpose of the company. And so if you value them, you would give them the opportunities to learn and grow. Because at the end of the day, you as a leader work for them, not the other way around.
Right.
And
finally, valuing them can also mean giving them constructive criticism.
Oh, of course. That would happen during the observation coaching for sure. And then finally, empowerment is be the wind beneath their wings. Maybe you give them a special project and you give them some parameters, but not too many. And you let them come back to you with what they like to do, what their issue they're trying to solve is, what their time horizon is, and most importantly, what resources do they need from you as the leader to make sure they're empowered to be their very best. Again, like that fig tree in my backyard. How do we make that fig tree be in a, you know, in an environment, a growth environment where it can grow up into its full purpose as a fig tree, much like any human being wants to be an environment that gives them every opportunity to grow into the best version of themselves.
Right. You know, it's funny, in your book, you talk about military and the Marines, but of course, I was thinking just now of one of the other branches, be all that you can be. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that one as well. I mean, it gives me chills, you know, when you think about it. And I never had the honor of serving in the military, but I respect and thank everybody who does, as well as their families, because they all serve. And so I look at that as an opportunity, though, to say that works. That style of leadership works in the military because you have to have a chain of command. You're talking about people's lives, and you want everybody to come back safe, right? This is not what we're talking about in today's new world of work. That style of command and control has gone the way of the dodo. We used to revere leaders with that kind of management style, going back to Lee Iacocca in the 80s, who turned around Chrysler, right? Or maybe Jack Welch at GE, who, by the way, annually cut 10% of the workforce because he felt like that was a way to trim the fat. And we said, well, that's good for you, Jack. Yeah. And they got results, right? So we say, okay.
And we did. We thought that he's got this fabulous company. And
salute
it was
and
working.
Execute. Absolutely. And then Steve Jobs. Now, Steve Jobs has been part of creating, and a large part of creating, arguably the most valuable company in the world. But if you would go back and talk to people that work for those three people, I'm not sure that style would work today.
No, they're a little hard-nosed. we can say something else, but we might get in trouble.
So how do we bring the human back to human resources, where the C-suite understands that their role isn't just to command and control their troops underneath them, but it's to create a environment. Now, I used the word culture before, but when I say words matter, Deb, I believe the better word, there's nothing wrong with culture, but I think the better word is community.
Right.
Culture may just be a place you merely feel a part of. A community is a place you feel like you belong in.
Right.
See the difference? And so let's talk about DEI, and we should, but we should do more than talk about it. We should act on it because it's a competitive advantage, not a box checking exercise.
Yeah, we need to have as many different people providing input as possible.
In my book, I talk about diversity in two ways. Outward diversity, as most people probably think of, and inward diversity is how you think, speak and act. What value do you bring to the organization based on your experiences, your outward diversity, right? We all come from different life experiences. So how do we meld that within a team environment to bring the best out of everybody? So imagine, diversity just gets you in the door, right? Equity gives you an equal voice. Inclusion gives you a seat at the table. All those are good, but if you don't feel like you belong, you're not likely to be vulnerable to give your very best. Well, yeah, because you don't want to be in the, rock the boat. You're just happy to be in the room where it happened, to quote Hamilton. So the idea of creating a community somewhere you belong, that's got to be the new mindset of leadership. How do we stop using the word culture and oftentimes incorrectly or as a buzzword? And how do we really come together to create a sense of community where people feel loved, listened to, observed, valued, and empowered to be their very best?
Right. And I, to me, those are all very important, but empowering, I think, really is one of the ones, and it's so hard because people are like, well, but if I let them do what they want, what are they going to do? And it's funny. You had all of the, the food companies that you worked for. And of course, I've got one of the biggies down here, Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
And I've never worked for them. I eat there as much as I can. I love them. But they are very much into empowering. And, if you drive up and you're going through the drive-through, if you say, I want one chicken nugget, they can give you one chicken nugget. And now are they going to try and say, well, they come in a thing of 6, but they are empowered to recognize that the customer is right.
Yeah.
And so they will do that. How many times have we been dealing with somebody where we say, but can't you do X? And they say, oh no, the rule says, or my boss won't let me, and now granted, we're not talking about, giving away the farm or, anything like that, because empowerment still can mean telling somebody no. But it is also giving them the opportunity to say, let's see what we can do. Yeah.
Back in the day when I was working for David Novak, who was the then CMO for Pizza Hut. And then he went on to become, went through the ranks of PepsiCo and ultimately became the co-founder and chairman of the board and CEO of Yum Brands, which is Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, et cetera. Right. And he had a mindset that he wanted to create among everybody, which was called customer mania. He wanted people to be customer maniacs, maniacal about taking care, and I call them guests, of our guests. And so giving them the rope to do what is right. Because at the end of the day, most retail people are thinking is transactional. It can be. Right. But the best is relational. If you're building a relationship, like I go to Starbucks and I go to pour coffee, I like coffee. I make sure that I know them by name and then they know me by name. Right. And now we've built a relationship and it's more than just a transaction, like I'm some faceless, nameless, transaction versus a living, breathing human being like they are. And so when I use their name and talk to them and ask them questions about their their work or their family, or
How
their
you doing
school.
today? I mean,
Yeah.
that's an easy thing to ask.
It's just being human, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so often people treat servers, or they
Mm-hmm.
call them waiters,
Mm-hmm.
as if they're, non-human.
Yeah,
And
different class of citizen.
it's beyond me,
Mm-hmm.
as someone who's been an executive for
Mm-hmm.
different food companies that you mentioned, why you would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because those who earn tips, how are you going to get a higher tip?
Mm-hmm.
You're going
Right.
to deliver a better experience.
And
for
do you
that
really
guest.
want to piss
Memorable.
off the person who's giving you food?
No.
I mean,
I would not think that was a good strategy.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
no, but it's just, again, when I say love, it sounds so
Mhm.
easy,
Mhm.
but how come more leaders don't do it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because we've all been taught,
Right.
to
Mhm.
kind of keep that at home.
Mhm.
Just keep your nose to the grindstone, that whole mantra.
Mhm.
But now there's younger people, the back end of the millennials, and now the start of Gen Z, and the mid of that's called zillennials. They're wanting, and especially in this hybrid or remote environment
Right.
we're in, they're wanting better, deeper communication. They're wanting a connection. They're wanting to build a relationship, and they're wanting to create a purpose at work that will match the purpose in their life. So,
Right.
Deb, we as adults, we sleep a third of our lives, sometimes less. We work a third of our lives, mostly more. And then what? We're going to just live a third. So if we can meld our purpose in our lives, in our work, that'll give us time to sleep. But we're going to have a more fulfilling life at the end of the day.
Right.
And I use, again, so often people throw around, terms. There's four kind of key, emotions or outcomes. There's fun. I had fun at the concert last night. It's fleeting and it's personal. And then there is happiness, which could be a little longer term, but it's also personal. And then we get to joy, that is more longer term and external. I get joy by helping others and serving others. And then fulfillment is, I believe, to be kind of more eternal and certainly outward. And that is this whole notion that, the reason I say purposeful versus purpose is someone says, well, I don't know if I found my purpose. Maybe you haven't, but you can be purposeful every day, because it's an action word.
Right.
It's, purpose is a noun, and people
and your purpose might change.
It
Probably
change
does.
depending on your season of life. My purpose when I had a young family, going back to those four realms of who I serve, spiritual, relational, where my family was, professional, where I work, and personal, which is my self-care. I would spend probably more emphasis on relational. Right.
Because you had to be there for your wife and your daughters.
And if you start a new job and you're learning a new thing, or you get promoted, you're going to put more emphasis on professional.
Right.
And then maybe if you got sick, you had a health scare, we should be doing a lot more with self-care anyway. And don't wait for that to happen, because then you're not good to the other three realms of service.
Yeah.
And maybe there was a major life event or epiphany that got you thinking that there's someone bigger than yourself spiritually. Well, that realm might be, but they're all in that four-circle Venn diagram, because we're whole people. But in the center of it is purposeful growth, and it revolves just like the tree rings of the tree represent the seasons and the years of a given tree. We'll be going through different seasons of life, and often they overlap. Right.
And they change size, as you were saying.
It's never the same size. And again, some get bigger, some get smaller, but they're all always interconnected, because they're part of you as a whole person.
Right. Well, Mark, I'm curious what you think about, we've mentioned hybrid and COVID and all of those things. Everybody went out, right? You worked on Friday, you were home on Monday. That was very bizarre. And there's many companies where people are still working remotely or having, a little bit of hybrid. And now we're seeing the pushback where people want to be with other people and not with them on a screen. I mean, and we, even Zoom has said its employees need to come back into the office part of the time. How difficult do you think it has been to have that engagement and things when we were working and, may still be working remotely?
Yeah, that's a great question, Deb. And I think we're all still trying to figure that out. When COVID hit, I was working for a company in Philadelphia. I live in Kansas City. And
so you were remote.
Well, yes and no. I would commute there for meetings because we had an office in the suburbs, and we had some other executives that were commuting in, and even the CEO did. So we kind of started with this idea. We were, I guess, before COVID was cool, but then when it hit, we literally shut the office down, and we sublet it because we then went remote, and we had one of the most productive years I can imagine, and I've been doing this a long time. New menu, acquisitions of 2 new brands, or 3 new brands, sorry. New kind of vision, mission, values with this broader enterprise that I outline in my book. And but we were more productive because I wasn't sitting on a plane flying from Kansas City
driving
to
in a
Philadelphia,
car,
or
all
driving
of those.
and we were more efficient because I wasn't, we weren't in hotels or dining out and things of that nature. So we were more productive. And then we also had weekly happy hours. So we connected as like a family would connect. And I do that now with my family that lives all over the place, including some in Canada, each month. But we did this each week to stay connected on a human level. We did things during, like Halloween, where we had costumes, or people wore bad sweaters, before Christmas. But we did fun things, and we themed them. And then we also did ways where we learned about each other's businesses. So we went really narrow and deep. So it can work in a pinch, but going forward long term, I don't think that's the best way to go, personally.
Right.
Now, that company has stayed remote, and they've taken on 2 new brands, and so that works for them great. But young people need that interaction.
Yeah, there's so much that happens, say, at the coffee maker.
Yes.
Or just bopping past somebody's office and seeing that maybe they've got a new picture of their family that they've got on their desk. I mean, all of those things. And you have those remotely. I mean, like, I could have a different picture back here behind me, and somebody might go, "Oh, what's that?" But you lose that intimacy.
Yeah. Well, I think the hybrid model of going in, 2-3 days a week, you kind of get your fill of that, while now the other 2 days you're working from home. In the UK, they've been testing a 4-day work week that actually went very well. They saw their productivity even rise, and their profitability even rise. And when the test was over, only 2 companies decided not to continue it. The rest are doing it on their own. So I don't mean to be Nostradamus or anything, but I could see the day when there could be a compromise and we have a 4-day work week. But I think, again, younger people are impacted most. They're the ones that are coming out of college or grad school. They need the discipline of a work environment, somewhere to go to every day, being on time, learning etiquette, knowing how to, speak in the room at a meeting, and how to listen and how to ask good questions. Again, I have 25-year-old twin daughters, and one loves it. And she's in Portland, and she's working remotely. The other one's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she's working for a company in Atlanta and working remotely. And it's difficult because you're disconnected from the mothership, and you're not in those coffee room chats. You're not at the water cooler. Someone didn't say, "Hey, let's go grab lunch and catch up," or "Let's do happy hour after work and kind of let our hair down because we just finished a big project." You're out of sight, out of mind, and that's not going all that well for her. So I just think there's not an easy answer, and it's going to be a very murky gray area. There's going to be some people, militant, that you have to be in here, it's our way or the highway, and then you'll see people leave. And there's going to be some people that say, "I'm going to stay in remote, and I won't even accept a job that doesn't allow me to work remote because I kind of like it." And then there are going to be those in the middle who want it both ways. That's where the hybrid comes in.
Well, and that's where the true leader is going to come out, because they will know employee A is going to work best at home. Employee B needs to come in.
Yep.
And things like that, rather than the mandates of you will be in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and just knowing that comes back to the love,
The listening.
I interviewed someone on the program, Summer Turner, and she's absolutely delightful. I've interviewed her several times, and she is an extreme introvert.
Mhm.
And that's actually what she works with companies on, is how do you deal with your employees who are like that? And I said, isn't it easier on Zoom? And she said, actually, no, because as an introvert, it gets really easy. Let's just poke that button and turn the camera off.
Yeah.
Or, and she said, so an introvert will become even more introverted when they're having to do this remote working. And she said, that's tricky, because how do you deal with that? Because they're thinking, hey, this is great, I get to stay home, I don't have to deal with those wackadoodles out there. But they're going to be more productive when they are back in the work environment. And obviously it's, you're going to have people on either side, but that the good leader, and here's one of the words matter.
Yep.
That leader might not be the person in charge. It might just be somebody else who notices, hey, you know what, Mark is going to do better if he's in the office, but Deb really needs to be at home. And then communicate that.
Yeah, I think, it's still unfolding. And then I just read literally yesterday a Wall Street Journal article that published a report that said almost 2 full days a week are spent either doing email or in meetings. And so the thesis was all about, how do we increase productivity while continuing collaboration and good communication, but without it becoming a time bandit that is sucking our team members' lives, blood dry. Because have you ever met someone who said, Deb, I wish we had more meetings.
Yeah, I can't wait to go to that meeting.
This meeting is so good, I wish it would never end. No. So
never.
I've got a whole section in the book that talks about meeting productivity, inviting the right people, not everybody who's remotely connected to a project, but the right people who can make a decision in the room, and make sure that you have an agenda in advance, that he pre-reads in advance, so that people come in a productive manner. And then you have someone who's taking good notes, and then you leave time for questions and recap at the end. So what did we agree to, and then who's got what elements next, and when is it due before we come back together? And it's not hard, but it's a discipline that so many people just, they get off on the wrong track. The meeting meanders, and by the end of it, they just want to go.
Right.
And so
and they forgot why they were there.
Exactly. So you have to have a stated purpose for the meeting and a desired outcome. And that's got to be on the agenda before it goes out, along with any pre-read material. So someone comes in, like, I just read this report or this concept ahead of time, so I'm not going to be learning about it for the first time. That way we can get maximum participation and maximum value out of that time together. And whoever said, well, a meeting has to be at least an hour, because that's what my schedule says. Why not 20 minutes? Why not 40 minutes? What is the magic of an hour? And so if people thought about that and really prepared in advance, then they could give people back the gift of time that they're so they're so craving. Right.
I want to talk a little bit about something that you have on your website. You have a free self-assessment, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yes.
But talk to us about that. And I took it, and so it was very interesting. And so if you're thinking about taking it, folks, it took me 5 minutes. I mean, this was not anything that was a long drawn out test type of thing. But talk to us about that, and what is it that people are going to learn from it?
Well, they're going to learn a lot about themselves. And so it's a purposeful growth self-assessment. So as Deb mentioned, it takes about 5 or 6 minutes. And when you're done, you can immediately download a customized report with your scores. That's kind of cool. And you'll get 4 seeds for growth from yours truly that are designed to help you in each of the areas that the questions ask. So it's broken up into 4 sections that follow the 4 sections of my book. It's cultivating your field for purposeful growth. And I live in Kansas, and we know a little something about agriculture.
Yeah, just a little bit about cultivating.
Yeah, you don't rush right out and plant a seed. You cultivate the ground first. You make sure it's ready for growth. So the first section is kind of getting a gauge of where are you on this concept of purposeful growth. The second section is about planting your seed for purposeful self. It's all about you. The third section, in the media section, is growing you forward for purposeful work. And that 4 means the LEAF model. Where are you with regards in your organization with regard to leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment, right? And then the final section is about scattering your seeds for purposeful life.
Right.
So you kind of go through the 4 seasons approach, and it gives you a benchmark of where do you stand in each of those areas. Are you aligned personally, and are you aligned with your company? And do you have, an environment where you can grow into the very best you can be? And so then I also have developed for brands a purposeful growth brand assessment that takes this individual approach, but then melds it into the brand approach. And that's where I'll do consulting and reach out to organizations and get them aligned.
Right.
So what they think they're doing well and what their team members are saying they're doing well often
aren't the same thing.
Be the same thing. And so being able to have that listening ear and being able to create that sense of community, you want alignment between your team members. And think about a brand. Oftentimes we'll say, well, there's just one brand. It's the brand that, is customer facing and the end user or whatnot. Well, no, there's actually 4 brands, Deb. The first one is what we're really now starting to explore. It's always been there, but we've never given it credence, is one's personal brand that asks the question, who am I? The second brand is the internal brand, which is the collective group of individuals into the team, the internal team, which asks the question, what do we stand for? The third brand is the external brand that is guest facing, community facing, media facing, et cetera, which asks the question, what value is exchanged? Because at the end of the day, every business is about a value exchange. What do I get for what do I pay? And then the final one is now, again, taking a lot of precedence given the labor situation, is the employer brand. And that asks the question, do I belong here? So all 4 of those are intertwined like the 4-circle Venn diagram all around purposeful growth. So how do we align the personal brand of each individual and let them be who they are, but ensure that their purpose aligns with our company or brand purpose, the internal brand, to make sure that collectively we are working together as a team and, standing up for what we stand up for together, locked arm in arm. And then, of course, our external brand, is that value being exchanged in a way that's putting us in a positive light? As I mentioned earlier, would somebody switch brands because of what we stand for?
Right.
Would they
And
be
even
willing
pay
to pay
more?
more? Yeah, right. And then we get into the, employer brand. How do I recruit people in this tight labor market and make my purpose be a tiebreaker? And so then that perpetuates that whole 4-brand cycle to where it ultimately comes across as one tight fist.
Right. And of course, the problem comes when those are at odds with each other. And I think we see that a lot of times where what happens internally is not what happens externally. And one of the ones that I'm thinking about is the singer Lizzo, who, her outward brand is inclusivity. She is a gorgeous, curvy girl. And, and she owns that. But then, people are suing her saying that's not what's going on internally. Internally, she makes fun of us. She makes us do stuff we don't want to do, from in bad ways, because sometimes your employer says, hey, you got to do that. And you're like, ugh. And, And so her external brand is not matching her internal brand. Now, could it be those people want attention? Sure. You always have that, but there's already been fallout from this for her, I saw that, some events that were going to feature her have been canceled. And,
Yeah.
and we see that, we see that obviously with individuals a lot, with actors and things like that. But your company can have that too, where,
Yes.
That's
what I
thinking
mean by
about
toxic work
yeah,
environment,
yeah,
right? That's what I was just talking about, is people said, no, I'm not going back. That's
right.
the number one reason for me, leaving my, environment was it was toxic, and I don't want to go back to that. And I don't have to.
Right.
So that's a great example.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think we had a lot of I don't have tos who are now thinking, oh, I might have to, because they're, and because we did have the great resignation. And then I think people might be thinking, well, but I'm not saying they have to go back and accept what's not going to be good.
Right.
But I think,
yes.
they might be kind of rethinking a bit and go, okay, well, 99% of what went on there was good. So I can live with that.
Yeah, but they're not going back to the same place they left often.
Right.
They're saying, look, I left that for a reason. And, this what was a side hustle for whatever reason couldn't sustain me as my main hustle. So I need to go back in the corporate world. But I'm going to be more choosy as to who I select, because the job market is such where you can be.
You can be. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so there's this switch toward, again, people moving toward more purposeful companies. And, you hear so often, what does that mean? And, to the bottom line, at the end of the day, we're a publicly traded company, or we're all about profit. Well, it's not purpose or profit. It's purpose and profit.
Right.
And I've got reams and reams of data, much of what I put in the book, that suggests that profit comes as a result of purpose. Because it's all part of that ecosystem where, if you think about the 4 key stakeholders, there's your team members. If you have purpose, you're going to attract and retain and get them to be more engaged.
Right.
Your customers are going to, again, leave their other brands and come and even spend more because of what you stand for, not just about your product or service. There's your business partners or business stakeholders in that whatever ecosystem you're in, suppliers, distributors, maybe investors. And then there's the community. And then again, those 4 stakeholders are in that 4-circle Venn diagram, all revolving around purposeful growth.
I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Mark, this has been such a great discussion, and we need to do it again because it's important. I think it's very important, for people to be thinking about. But tell us how people find you. We mentioned the book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution. But tell us how they find you and what are the services that you provide.
That's great. You can get my book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder.
And we didn't even talk about
we
that.
didn't even get into legacy, which is a really cool topic. But if you want to talk more about it, hit me up on LinkedIn and let's start a conversation. My website is markamears.com. Don't forget the A. It's on my book. I couldn't get markmears.com. Someone already has it. So I'm not being pretentious by using a middle initial. But it's markamears.com. And there you'll find the Purposeful Growth Self-Assessment. It's free. Again, it takes about 5-6 minutes, and you can customize or download your customized report immediately when you're done. But then also you'll see there's 4 ways to grow with me. There's the book. So there's reading. There's speaking. If you have a corporate event or a group event or a convention, or sales meeting, I'm available for keynote speeches and then also consulting. So workshops, again, I've got this Purposeful Growth brand assessment where I can dig into what your brand or your company is doing currently and help ensure you are aligned across all 4 of your brands. And then finally, I'm putting together a very cool e-learning curriculum. And it will start with a purposeful growth plan. How you can meld your God-given purpose with your work purpose and be more fulfilled in the 2/3 of the time we're not sleeping.
I love it. I love it. And again, it's markamears.com.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Well, this has been absolutely delightful. And I can't wait to have you on again because, like we said, there are things, my notes are, we still didn't cover everything. So we will do that. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah. I try to simplify things, and there was a great movie several years ago with Alec Baldwin, Jack Lemmon. It was called Glengarry Glen Ross. And Alec Baldwin played a cameo as this leader of this organization that was essentially dialing for dollars and selling land and things of that nature. And he was at a meeting, and he gets up at the easel and he writes ABC. And he says, it stands for always be closing, which is a salesperson's mantra, always be closing. Well, I shift that C and I say, always be curious. Ask good questions. Ask the question behind the question. Learn all you can about something so that you can become ultimately an expert in it, and then pay it backward to teach somebody else. And I say pay it backward because when I go to Starbucks, I will pay for the car behind me in the drive-thru. I don't know what they're going through that day, but I just feel like blessing them with a cup of coffee or two will help brighten their day. And I can't pay it for the car in front of me because they're already gone. So I call it pay it backward. And then what I find is it creates this ripple effect where it follows the law of reciprocity, Deb, which says if someone does something nice for you, you feel compelled to do something nice for someone else, and oftentimes in greater measure. So I just leave you with this notion of pay it backward. Leave a living legacy. Don't wait till you're dead and buried and bequeath something of value. Create value for someone else every single day.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Well, I've been having such a fun conversation with Mark A. Mears. He is the founder and chief growth officer for Leaf Growth Ventures, and he is the author of The Purposeful Growth Revolution. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.